So here are the colonies in America. Let me hide that. So the types of colonies. You had proprietary colonies, meaning that colonies are owned by a joint stock company like the Virginia Company, or by an individual. Okay. Then you also have a royal colony, colonies that are owned and controlled by the king. By the way, the proprietary colonies, a lot of times if an individual owned it, it was granted to them from the king. And the guy here, we will talk about a little bit later, his name is James Oglethorpe, I believe that's his photo, his portrait. Okay. Massachusetts, because of a tight community control, some individuals began to offer dissenting opinions. Roger Williams believed in that separation of church and state, which is kind of the opposite of what John Winthrop believed in, and was exiled from the colony. And then he founded Providence, Rhode Island. Okay. Anne Hutchinson, her belief in individual worship challenged Puritan leaders, and she was banished in a famous trial and fled to Rhode Island. Okay. So Rhode Island is kind of set up as a safe haven for people who were not welcome in Massachusetts because they did not follow the strict lifestyle of the Puritans. Okay. There's also the New Netherlands. If you follow this river right here, that is the Hudson. So Henry Hudson explored the Hudson River, which is named after him, and the Hudson Bay areas. Okay. The Dutch found the colony at New Amsterdam. New Amsterdam is another word that they used for New York. The English take the colony in 1664 and renamed it New York. Part of the region divided into the colony of New Jersey, which is right here. Okay. So at one point, that was all one colony. Rhode Island, as we said a while ago, founded by Roger Williams. It's a land peaceably acquired from the Indians or from the Native Americans, based on religious freedoms that Williams promoted. Thought church and the government should operate separate from one another, which is a lasting idea that we have that was instituted into the Constitution. Connecticut, founded by Thomas Hooker, wanted more religious freedom than Massachusetts allowed. They disliked the requirement of citizens to be church members. The fundamental orders, which were the first constitution in the nation. Okay. Pennsylvania, y'all probably heard of William Penn and the Quakers. They were a religious group who practiced worship without ministers and were pacifist. So this is kind of the most equitable. The Puritans and the Pilgrims, they practiced more under a priest or under a preacher. The Quakers were a little more equitable, meaning everybody was on the same level. And if you don't know what pacifist means, it means that they were nonviolent. Like Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., they were all pacifists. The Quakers ended up establishing Philadelphia, which in Greek, I believe, means city of brotherly love. They believed in fair treatment of the Native Americans, and they had a pretty thriving colony. Maryland is established by George Calvert. He's Lord of Baltimore. It was established as a safe haven for English Catholics because in England, Catholics were prosecuted because they were not part of the Anglican Church. The Catholics were soon outnumbered by Protestants here, either of Puritan descent or of something else. Then in 1649, they established the Toleration Act, and that is what established religious freedom in Maryland, which that is also, again, kind of a direct correlation to our freedom of religion in the Constitution. Okay. Some of the other colonies, you have Carolina. So it started off as one large colony. It wasn't North Carolina and South Carolina, it was just Carolina. It was a royal colony named after King Charles. It eventually split into what we know as North Carolina and South Carolina. Georgia was set up by James Oglethorpe. He began it as a safe haven for debtors. In England, if you were in debt, you could go to what they called debtor's jail. In order to pay back you basically paid back your debt with time versus with money. And you can imagine that a lot of people were in debt, so then you ended up running out of space in jails. So the way that they solved that was James Oglethorpe said, instead of sticking them in jail, send them over here to work. It also provided as a buffer from the colony in Florida. So if they were worried about being, the Carolinas might be worried about getting attacked, so then they put Georgia there, so they have to go through Georgia first. They did not allow alcohol or slaves in Georgia. And those are the colonies.